Hello and welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we talk about all things related to creating, living, and making projects. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me as always is Adam Mackey. This week, we have a special guest. He can be seen towering over the entire province of New Brunswick. He likes to move metal as long as it doesn't end up in the hands of Chad's Custom Creations. You won't catch him posting too much on Instagram, but everyone knows he's the one with working hands. It's Tony from Woodland Iron. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. This was quite the intro. I like it.
Yeah. I like to try and have some fun. So why don't you tell our listeners, who you are and what you do beyond what I just told them?
I don't know if there's much more to say. You did a pretty good job. I am a hobbyist blacksmith. The podcast on the side. I've man a few words, which is really bad for podcasts, so I don't get invited to many. So I'm very happy that I've been invited to this one. So
right.
I barely get invited to my own.
Yeah. What is that podcast named?
The Working Hands Podcast.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
and
little plug in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get you. That's why you're on here. Is to being a guest on a podcast is giving them the opportunity to talk a little bit about their thing that they do that they want everyone to listen to. And I listen every week to Working Hands. I haven't actually listened to the episode you dropped today. I usually am a day behind unless I get a notification that I've been mentioned, and then that one goes to the top of my list. But I wasn't mentioned this week, so
yeah, keep waiting.
So today we actually Tony. The other thing that Tony does that he didn't mention is that he is a semi-professional weightlifter. Would you say it's semi-professional?
Correct term is amateur.
Yeah, come on now. All right, you're more than an amateur because you go to competitions.
Still amateur. Still
okay.
Still what's deemed as amateur. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not paid, so.
Right. Okay.
I pay to go there.
Right. But you go and actually compete in weightlifting competitions at a level that's beyond going to Planet Fitness and slamming the weights around, right?
Yeah, 100%. I'm to the point now. I actually coach a little bit on the side as well. The gym that I go to is just powerlifting only. Well, sorry. The gym is a CrossFit gym that has a powerlifting section.
Okay.
So we have a small corner of the gym that we've got 5 racks in. So we have power racks, like squat racks. And that's kind of our little corner. We've got a few other pieces of gear and strongman equipment and a bunch of other things. But there's 3 of us that coach, and we've got, I think it's right around 30 members that lift. Nice. 10 to 15, I would say, would be competitive, like that actually have competed in meets. So, but yeah,
right. You're a competitive weightlifter.
Yeah,
there you go.
Well, powerlifter is the actual term.
You're a competitive powerlifter.
I'm just gonna keep letting you lead yourself down this garden path, and then correct you, just bring you back a little bit.
It's really funny that the one guy out of the 3 of us that doesn't lift weights is trying to introduce the guy that lifts weights.
Well, I'm not. That's right. That's what we wanted. I wanted to have you on today to talk about, dude, bro, do you even lift? No, I wanted to talk about, we wanted to talk a little bit about things outside of the making hobbies. Because a lot of times we end up talking a lot about super maker related stuff, which is great. But people have lives outside of that. And we wanted to have a chance to talk with someone who I know has a good amount of hobbies and, is competitive about them.
Yeah, I have a bunch of other hobbies as well. I mean, the making side of things is probably, I don't know, 10% of what I do, to be honest. Like, it's my shop's 12 by 12. I get out there every now and again. When I was building up the shop is when I spent the most time making, or what we term as making, was when I was building my forge and setting up my anvil, setting up my post vise, like getting the welding table set up, getting all my other tables and stuff that I built for the shop. Like there was a fair bit of work, and that was most of since the shop's been up and running. I go out when I feel like it. I don't ever go out when I'm like, I got to get out there. I really have a hard time with that. I'm trying to keep this a hobby and don't want, and then that's where we I feel like we're a little bit different on our podcast because we talk, and I'm not saying that different than you guys, but we're hobbyists first. We don't ever talk about making it into your job. That's not at all what we want to do. We want to have fun with it, and we want to make it. We just want to go out and play and have fun when we want to do it.
100%. I'm with you. You know, me and Adam for
Yeah,
sure
same here.
are on the same page. It is, but that's the thing is when it is your hobby, you're likely to have other ones, right? And that's why I wanted to talk about competitive powerlifting. What is that, and what kind of things do you do? Do you squat? Is squat the thing you do?
So that squat is what I'm best at.
Okay.
So there's 3 lifts: is squat, bench, and deadlift. So in a meet scenario, you have 3 attempts on the 3 lifts. So 9 lifts total.
Okay.
So, you start with squat. So 3 attempts at your squat. And then once you're done with squat, it's 3 attempts at bench. Then that's done. And 3 attempts at deadlift. And then your meet's done.
What's your personal best at all 3 of those things?
Personal best squat is 230 kilos or 507 pounds.
Wow.
Jeez.
My bench is my weakest movement, and it's at I think it's 280 pounds.
Jesus.
But I can't remember the kilos, like 135-ish, somewhere's in there.
Yeah, about
Pounds is what we're
135-ish,
looking
yeah.
for.
Yeah, I'm trying to give the conversions for everybody. It's weird because Canadians have a tendency to work in pounds, but our federation, the lifts are in kilos. Like when we
I was going to
go
say,
up to the
yeah, when you're in competition, it's in kilos, right?
yeah, it is because it's international comp, so it's in
Exactly,
kilos.
yeah.
But my brain works in pounds. It's weird. And then for my deadlift, my deadlift and my squat are the exact same at 230 and 507. So
Wow.
I need my deadlift needs a lot of work because as a 500-pound squatter, I should be closer to 600-pound deadlifter. There should be a bigger gap between the two, but I just have an affinity for the squat. Like I actually enjoy it. So I would much rather, I've said this 100 times, is I'd much rather have a bar on my back than have it in my hands and try and pull it off the ground.
Yeah.
So
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When I look at someone deadlifting, and I know it's like you're not lifting with your back, but all I see is broken backs. And I know they're not doing it with their back, but there's like, obviously, if you screw it up, if you don't know what you're doing, you can really hurt yourself.
no, you're right. You can. I haven't witnessed anybody really injure themselves at comp because for the most part, if you've committed to this level,
Yeah.
you're not just gripping and ripping. You've got
So your
some
form
technique
should be
behind
on
it.
point if you're going to competition.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, I've seen some people do some stupid stuff, but it's generally by the time you get someone to competition, they know what they're doing. They've pulled hundreds of reps.
When you deadlift in competition, is it both ways? I don't really know that much about it, or is it just lift and then like drop it down, or is you need to put it down properly as well?
Yeah, so you can't let go of the bar. So with powerlifting, that you have to do things to a certain standard. So you have 3 judges, one on each side, and one head judge that's directly in front of you. Yeah, so then your head judge doesn't give you command on this one. What it does, what they do is you go up to the bar. Well, they tell you the bar's loaded. You go up, you pull the bar up, you get to the top, and then they'll give you a down command. And when you get the down command, you have to control the bar down. So
Right.
most people just ride the bar. So essentially, you just let it fall, but you keep your grip on it and just ride it to the ground. And then as long as it doesn't leave your hands between your hips and the ground, it'll be a good lift.
Okay. Yeah. I deadlift pretty much daily, but not to like competition standards. And the biggest thing is for me is trying to get the bar back down with control. Like lifting's pretty much easy. The easy part. It's the trying to like you're pretty much trying to sit while you put the bar down, and that's where I struggle.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough one to explain, but it's the negative can be as beneficial as the pull upwards. Like the negative, as in your travel from your hips down to the ground. If you do that in a controlled manner, that can be as beneficial as the actual what you think of as the lift.
Yeah.
What are you lifting these days, Adam?
My personal best was 135 kilos.
Nice.
That's good, man.
In my personal best, bench, which is the only thing I've ever done at the gym, not in competition ever or anything like that, was when I was in high school. I was able to bench my weight, which was 180. And I was like, perfect. That's all I ever will need to do is pull someone off of me that's my weight. And now, when I was at Keith's place, and we were just before we recorded I think it was before we recorded the Working Hands episode that I was on, but he has a weightlifting thing, and I did a bench with I think it was 245 pounders on it, so it was like 90 pounds plus the bar, and I had trouble.
That's 135 pounds.
Right, which I should have when I was at my best. 180. I now weigh more than that. I weigh a little bit more than 180, so I should be hopefully able to. Anyways, I just need to get to
my strength's mainly in my legs than anything else. Like 135 is my best for deadlift. I've got, I think from memory, I haven't done a squat for a while, about 150, 160. But like a leg press, like the machine where you're pretty much laying on your back and pushing the plates up above your head.
Yeah.
I've got that. My personal best on that's 520. So legs, I'm a lot stronger.
Makes sense because you were carrying around a lot of extra weight up there.
Well, and so that's the thing, yeah. Like essentially, for the last 20 years, I've been working out my legs every single day. Every time I walk, I've lost what did I say? I've lost 78 kilos. So that's 78 kilos of weight that I essentially was every time I took a step.
Yeah, 170 pounds for the Americans. So that's one of your hobbies. Do you have more? Do you want to is there any way that you feel to tie this a little bit into making? Is there any way you feel that working out and powerlifting is helpful for your blacksmithing?
It 100% is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just building strength. So building strength and stamina. I mean, the biggest thing with blacksmithing is actually stamina, not so much strength as far as I'm concerned. Like,
yeah,
you need to be accurate in your strikes. And if you're huffing and puffing and just having a hard time keeping up a pace that you're trying to work at, it becomes difficult to be, efficient at smithing. So I definitely see a benefit. And I mean, I can swing a fairly large hammer.
Right.
So
But I think swinging a bigger hammer, obviously, the bigger the hammer, the better, right? Like the more metal you're going to be able to move. But I think,
there's some debate there.
of course, but there's nobody who's going out there going like, I'm going to get a power hammer and I'm going to make it a 5 pound power hammer. No, right? They're
No.
making big giant power hammers to move big giant weights. So, and the bigger, the better, because you can always dial it back, right? So the stronger you are, you can usually dial it back. And if you're like me, you post a reel on Facebook and you're holding the hammer just a little bit, different than what everyone else thinks you should hold a hammer, and you blow up and get 6 million views because people like to, and
You
so
just-
many people call you derogatory terms that you want to delete.
You just did
Facebook
that for
forever.
engagement.
No, I did that because Steve House told me this is how I hold the thing. And if I look at so this is the craziest part. You look at my reel, I'm holding it very close to how Steve holds it, like in the same spot on the handle. My reel is filled with you are an idiot, you're a R word, you're a an F word, you're all these like derogatory terms, and I'm like, okay, it's like learn how to use a hammer. You should hit it next time with your purse. And I'm like, Jesus Christ! So I'm blocking and deleting people like crazy, which is fun, right? And Steve got also 6 million views on my Facebook Reels, holding the hammer the same way, but because he succeeded at it, and his nail didn't go sideways, and then he got like frustrated and angry with it. There's like 3 comments on there that he's holding the hammer wrong. I must have like 600 comments saying I hold it wrong.
Yeah, so the difference is a blacksmith will choke up on the hammer because the blacksmith is wanting to hit with more control.
Right.
And a carpenter generally is down at the bottom of the hammer because they're swinging for more force because they want to drive a nail, and it doesn't need as much precision. As long as the head of the hammer hits the nail head and it goes into the piece of wood, it's good. But when you're trying to drive a nail or trying to drive the head of a nail or round over the head of a nail, it just doesn't work if you're not hitting in the right spots. Because when you're working it, like if you watch when Steve is doing it, he starts and then he'll move around the top of the head that he's making in order to drive it down straight. I mean, I think in all honesty, his end result was not the greatest, but he was trying to do a very quick demo.
Yes.
But it still shows the technique that was there, and yours, you kind of laid it over and then just beat it unmercifully into the vise. So
right. If you want to see what Tony looks like standing in bewilderment at someone doing something so poorly, you could just go look at my reel because he's in the background going, oh, and there's a couple people who commented on the guy in the background. His face says it all. And I was like, yeah, it does. But so I really wish I could today try it again. And I could hold the hammer the same way, but with the hindsight of evaluating and watching Steve's video like over and over again, I think I could get it better. But,
yeah, I guess my critique of that was you were too rushed.
yes.
So you wanted to get. I know what you're trying. You're trying to get it. You were too rushed. The piece was too tall in the vise, is my opinion. And I think if you had a little bit less showing and then had taken your time a bit more, you had all kinds of heat in that. And honestly, that small of stock, when you're driving it, you can actually start to see heat come back into it if you're hitting it hard enough.
Well, according to the internet, I was hitting it very hard, but they also, half the comments say I missed it every time. And so I looked at the slow motion video, and you can see sparks every single time. So I keep telling them, go look again. I hit every single time. I hit it in the wrong spot. It completely flopped over, and I kept hitting the flopped over part, but I
Yeah.
hit every single time.
Well, that's the thing is that's what I'm saying. Like the face of the hammer that you're using isn't perfectly flat. Like it's not like you're using a claw hammer that has a flat face. Uh, a forging hammer has, even with what we consider a flat face, it's still got some round to it. Like it's not
Mm-hmm.
perfectly flat. So if you're not striking it pretty well perfect, you can end up, if you're hitting on the edge of the hammer or anything like that, you're still striking it, but you're going to produce a product that you're not happy with in the end.
Right. So here's the thing. Steve said you gotta go fast with this one. And when I heard fast, what he was trying to tell me is fast strikes, but not a lot of speed. But I just heard fast. So I went, I gotta fucking put a lot of power into these little strikes, and that was my problem. I needed less power, more strikes, so that I didn't. If it started going sideways, I could correct it. And
Yeah,
that's what I
because I mean, you probably, I think, from memory serves, when you laid it over, that was like two strikes and it was laid over.
yeah
So that's, and
done.
at the speed you were going, two strikes was like that.
Yeah.
So it was just, you needed to be a little bit more. So for me, I get what he's saying, and I don't disagree with what he said. Um, but for me, I would be more deliberate in what I was in. Like, So this is something that I did when I was there. I was with Rasmus that was
Yes,
there.
Rasmus. Yeah.
So he helped me with a forge welding tutorial. So he
Mm-hmm.
took me through the steps, and that was one thing he told me when I was doing the forge weld. I tried the first one, and he said you have to step with more purpose, because I was in the fire. So we're using, if everybody doesn't know, we're using coal forges, and I was stepping from the coal forge to the anvil, and then having to grab my hammer. And he just said, and then I lost the heat by the time I'd gotten over. And he stopped me, and he's like, this is what I was just like, critiqued what I did. And he's like, you just need to be more purposeful when you step. So you need to know where the hammer is. You have it set up on the anvil, however,
Right.
the best way for you to reach and grab it. You got your pieces in the forge, you're working them. Once you get to the color of heat that you want, and then it should be one movement. Like, think of your steps, think of everything. Like, think of,
Right.
should I just have my feet planted a certain way to bridge the gap between me and between the forge and the anvil? It does come down to a lot of little things, but with smithing, you have to, like, really plan out what you're doing. You have to have a plan. It's not sheer. It's not like force of action, like, or maybe that's the wrong term, but it just has to be more deliberate, and you just need to know where the force is going and what it's going to do.
And this is the thing. When you look at a blacksmith shop and you look at people blacksmithing, you look at them and you think, for some reason, I think it just kind of feels like more artsy, and I think it's more science. And I think it's like you said, it's more deliberate. And I think a lot of people think it's more like, I'm just gonna hit some hammers on some hot metal. But it's not. It's like you are planning a lot out when you're doing it.
So in my experience, there's kind of two types of smiths, and there's some that are very scientific. It's like they have a project, they know what they want, they measure the metal, they figure out the volumes they need, they cut a piece, and it's basically perfect. I mean, it takes time and experience to figure that out. And then I've watched other smiths that it's like, oh, well, I'll just see where the metal goes.
Yeah. Fair.
No, no, it's not see where the metal goes. You are the one pushing the metal, so it is doing what you have told it to do.
So I
Like,
think it's actually they're the same person, but the one who says I'll just see where it goes is letting their subconscious do it, and the one that is planning it out is their conscious is the one that's doing it.
It sounds like people trying to play golf. You either line up your shot and your feet perfect to where you want the ball to go, or you just walk up and go, oh yeah, that's about right, and then just hit it and hope it goes to the right spot.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Well, that brings us to another hobby. I know that Adam plays golf. I don't play. I have played golf twice in my life. I've gone to the driving range lots, but I've played a round of golf twice, and I went, that's as many times as I need to play. But it seems like Adam plays golf, and Tony, you must play golf.
I love golf.
I have not played much golf. I picked it up in my 20s when I started working at the refinery that I work at, because shift work and guys would go golfing, but I never really get into it. It's kind of the same way as smithing. For me, I'm not the first one that you talked about, like feet right, aimed right, like, because I first got up there, and especially someone being in my 20s, it was like just grip and rip and just go.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I had the most beautiful slice you'd ever see. That thing would be three holes over by the time it was done curving. Might even go backwards for some of them. I mean, it was
500 yards. But
it traveled. It traveled. Yeah, if you could measure distance traveled, it was great. And then that was the thing. So I battled it, but it then a buddy of mine at work actually said, your size, because at the time I was, I don't know, I've always been well over 200 pounds, but at the time I was probably in that 250 range. So a little under like 115 kilos, somewhere's in that ballpark. And he just said, your size, you just use your weight, just swing through it. So you don't have to sit there and just grip it like a baseball bat and then try and like really swing for all you're worth, because you're trying to finesse it. You're trying to make, it's not like baseball. You're just trying to make sure you don't hit it to somebody that can catch it.
Yeah.
Golf, you're aiming for a hole that's what, 3 inches in diameter.
Yep.
Like,
exactly.
So it's very different. Like,
I remember the first time I took my mate golfing, who's now obsessed, and with the course that we played at was our local course, which is now demolished because they're putting an amphitheater in. And along the first hole is along like the main road. On the other side of the main road is an ambulance station, a petrol station, and a church. And then like the cars are in, like the road is in between that and the golf course. And I said to him, the only thing you need to worry about for this hole is don't hit it onto the road. So I walk off thinking I'm king shit. First thing I do is smash a car window as driving along the road.
No.
First hit of the day. Yeah, first hit of the day. The ball just goes flying off to the right, hits a car window as it's driving past. And he goes, you mean like that? I was like, yeah, don't do that.
That would suck.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that's a terrible way to start your day.
I don't know what it's like there, but golf courses are the ones liable. So I'm not liable. It's not technically, it is my fault, but the golf course pays for the new window.
Yeah, they also planned out the first hole up against the road. Like exactly. your first swing is up against the road is probably not the best thing, because
even experienced golfers, their first hit's not going to be their best hit of the day.
You'd hope not. Really.
Yeah. So this reminds me of going bowling, and I always, in practice, my strike, and then I don't roll another strike the entire, like, as soon as the game starts, not another strike.
Yeah.
I don't go bowling very often, but every time it happens. What?
It's like your first pancake. First pancake is always the bad one. It's the one you usually get the temperature right.
Yeah, you haven't got the pan the right heat. Either it's too hot or too cold. So,
Tony, what other hobbies are you into?
Oh, geez, where do I start? I'm a bit of a gear junkie. Like, So I'm big into like motorsport kind of stuff. So I've got a motorcycle. I have an Indian Chieftain, so it's a fairly large cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got there?
So for those listening, Adam is showing off his tiny street bike because it has nothing to do with
My
how
my
cool
freshly
Indian.
painted cruiser.
Yeah.
Yeah, the paint looks great. So
Thank you.
what make is that? It looks
It's a
familiar.
Yamaha Virago.
Oh, okay, yeah. It looks like what we have here is a Yamaha V Star. The Viragos
yeah.
were the bike before that here, but that looks a lot like a V Star. I had one.
It's a V Star, yeah.
I had a 650 V Star. That was my first
Yeah, this
bike.
is a 250.
A 250, yes, sir.
Yeah. That's his first bike. He still got his learner plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you watch his latest video, you can see him going into his garage, and I wanted to like laugh at his learner plate.
At the learner plate?
Super big. Yeah.
The learner plate wasn't on there at the beginning of the video. And then
big red
I went
L?
it's yellow. Big yellow plate thing. And I went to a car show, so I had to put it back on. And then I forgot. And then when I was editing, I was like, shit, I didn't take the L plate back off.
Yeah, so that's a 250cc bike. So mine is an 111 cubic inch, which works out to 1850 or 1830, I think.
Wow.
CCs.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's equivalent to it's a 1.8 liter engine. So it's, small cars have that engine. But it's a V twin, so it's like, I don't know if it has 60 horse, but it gives you a lot of torque because of the because of being the V twin. I also am kind of outdoorsy, so I have what we call here a side by side, so like a UTV or so essentially a Jeep, but not quite.
What do people call them everywhere else? Because I call them a side by side because I'm also Canadian.
Yeah, it's North American would be side by side or.
What's the popular brand name?
The one I have is Kawasaki Terex.
So it's like a 4-wheeler. So it's like a 4-wheeler, but you drive it with a steering wheel.
Yep.
And you sit in it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm just trying to think of what I would call it.
Yeah, I've watched the there's some off-road guys that I watched that are in Australia. I can't remember their names.
It's like a Polaris, right?
Yeah, they have the Polaris Razors would be something that's in that realm.
I guess we they're them side by side as well.
Okay, so they're like I have one of those, so that's I burn a lot of weekends with motorcycles and side by sides and doing things like that. So it sometimes can be tough. Did you?
Yeah, that was my first So when you're 16 and you get your license in Ontario, I don't know if it's the same in New Brunswick or elsewhere, but your car license you have to drive with someone. But your motorcycle license, you're not allowed to drive with someone.
Well, exactly same here, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, whatever. So when I turned 16, I got my car license, I got my motorcycle license, had a car and a motorcycle. They're both pieces of garbage, but, whatever. But I couldn't drive the car and I could drive the motorcycle. So I had a motorcycle for all through high school, even drove it when it was snowing a little bit. But that was scary. I just remember every corner you'd go around, just be like, whoa. But had him. And then I went to university and I got mail, because we have a graduated license system. And you go from your M1 to your M2 to your full license. But you have to take a test every time. And while I was in university, it expired. But I didn't come home and check my mail. And I had mail sitting in my parents' house unopened, and I never checked it, and my license expired, and I never got a motorcycle since then.
Damn.
Yeah. So for me here, I think I'm a few years older than you. But for here, in high school, we have, they call it a class 7, but it's our learner's permit. Like there's a couple different stages to it. There's a learning stage where you have to have a licensed driver in with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that stage, you write a test, and I think it's a test. It's been 20 years, so it's hard to say. And it's probably changed. So then when you go from the first permit to then you can drive by yourself, but you can only have like one person, or maybe it's just as many as seatbelts you have. I can't remember exactly, and then it changed again after I got out of it, that you couldn't drive on highways and you couldn't drive after dark.
Right.
And there was some stuff like that. I think you guys in Ontario did that first, and when we just adopted it afterwards.
If you want to know what we currently have, if you're under 21 or 25, I can't remember you can have so the tolerance for alcohol is like 0.08 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
So
that's changed
if you're
here.
under 21 or 0.05, whatever the number is, if you're under 21, it's 0. Even though you can drink and you can legally drive, the tolerance is 0.
Basically turned the tolerance is 0 here in the
really?
last couple of years.
Oh.
But it's a varying degree of punishment depending on the degree of intoxication.
Okay.
The 0.08, you're still done. Like it's like your car's getting towed. You're going to the police
that
station.
Becomes criminal, right? That's a whole criminal matter. Yeah.
Basically, I've never gone through it, so don't quote me on New Brunswick road laws, but then there's different degrees. I think there's a 0.5, and that's like a certain amount of time with your license suspended, and then if you blow anything at all, I think there's a 24-hour suspension kind of thing. So there's a couple things in there. They're getting quite strict with it. Like I'm getting to the point where it's, well, not that drinking and drive was ever a good thing, but
yeah.
Who hasn't at some point had a drink and then driven? But now there's no risking it whatsoever.
So I just looked it up for fun because that's what I do. And it's between 0.05 and 0.08. It's an immediate 7-day suspension.
Oh, okay. I knew there was something like that. And I think if you blow anything at all, they're pretty much 24 hours. Is it not?
There's nothing about that.
Okay. Then that's just hearsay. So,
so the 24 hour has to do with like police officer discretion.
Oh, okay.
So if you blow something and they go, I don't like the way you look, right? If you got a Toronto Maple Leafs bumper sticker and they're a Montreal Canadiens fan, you're gone, right?
Yeah, I'm in trouble then.
Yeah. Are you a Montreal Canadiens fan?
No, I'm a Leafs fan.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's unfortunate for you.
Your Senators aren't doing any better.
I don't.
Actually, they're not doing any better at all.
The only thing that could make me potentially cheer for the Senators is if Ryan Reynolds buys the team. Otherwise, I'm a Canadiens fan.
Oh, okay.
One of my hobbies, to bring it all back to hobbies, I used to race remote control. Sorry?
So you're a Wrexham fan then?
A Wrexham fan? No, I'm a Canadiens fan. No, I'm not a fan of that weird Wales soccer team.
You said if Ryan Reynolds buys the team, and he bought Wrexham, so
yeah, true.
Right, but he's currently interested in buying the hockey team in my city.
Cool.
Which would be
he needs investors though.
Of course,
that's the problem.
Yeah. Anyways, it'd be really cool because I actually think he might be able to work out a deal so that we don't have a piece of land in our downtown that is completely unused because the former owner pissed off all the contractors. And anyways, whole political bullshit.
He's going to go through all that again. He just went through all that with Wrexham.
Yeah. So I used to race RC cars. This is going to tie in. Trust me.
Okay, here we go.
Our club was approached by the Ottawa Senators to have a in between periods show. So in between the periods, while everyone's going to take a piss and getting another thing of beer, they have little shows put on. And the Senators got us to go out there, and we raced our RC cars, and we'd have members of the crowd pick a winner. Like, they'd pick one of the three cars, and they were three Ottawa Senators cars, and they were off-road, two-wheel drive off-road cars on ice. And it was a blast to try and drive them, because if you've ever driven on ice, you know it's not fun. And if you try and drive a rear-wheel drive car, it's tail-happy. Anyways, we had jumps and stuff. It was a lot of fun. Every time Montreal or Toronto played, we would have three cars, two Senators, and one Toronto or Montreal car. And every time I got to drive the Montreal car. I'd wear my Montreal jersey, go in there with my Montreal car, and the only thing is you were not allowed to win.
You got to play the heel.
Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes like you're racing and the other people, like, it's ice, anything can happen. Their cars can get flipped upside down. So you get a car like flipped upside down, and I would just have to like try and flip my own car upside down on these jumps because I got to try and make it so that someone can catch up. But it was just sometimes you'd have a not so fun incident. Anyways, I don't race RC cars anymore because it got to be it wasn't like expensive, but it was just like reductive. It's kind of like if you do squats every day, you're doing squats every day. It's the same thing over and over, right?
And it actually can be damaging if you don't allow your body to rest.
Okay. If you do the same extra, like what I mean is like if you do squats every week, it becomes to the point where you're doing the same thing. And
yeah.
You get to like, you're like, if that's the thing you've done for 10 years, you kind of look at it and go, do I want to do this for another 10? Like, how much further can I grow?
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Because you're going to get to a point where you've maxed out your abilities or your... Like, in any hobby you do, you're going to get to a point where you've maxed out without cheating by going on steroids or whatever, your abilities are going to get maxed out, and you're going to have to start questioning, do I still want to continue doing this? Right? Or do I want to transition into a different role in this? Like you're doing coaching now because your knees are currently injured and you can't do the exercises you're doing and you're not getting any younger. Right, Tony?
That's true. But it just got a lot easier for me to get to nationals. So,
why is that? Is there a seniors category?
Yeah. So I'm now in what they call Masters 1. So I'm north of 40, and with being Masters 1, so if it's all done by age. So there's a sub junior, junior, and an open, then Masters 1, Masters 2, and Masters 3. I don't think that it goes above Masters 3. So I had competed in open, and that's where I actually had held provincial record here in the province for about 2 years, where I had the top squat in the province for a couple of years. That's no longer my record. Some young punk come in and smashed it all to hell. So, but I was happy with it.
He probably moved to New Brunswick just to beat you.
No, my squat record's not that impressive for a 105 kilo guy. So,
yeah. So then I think maybe we can bring this into making a little bit and go, do you feel like there's diminishing returns on it, on anything you do? because like I feel like a lot of times there's diminishing returns on becoming better and better at blacksmithing, better and better at like this is where I feel like why I'm a jack of all trades and I want to learn them all is because the 0 to 80% good, it's so fast and so furious and so it's like just amazing learning opportunities from there to there. And then every percentage point after that becomes uh, like a slog.
Yeah, I think it's all in what you really want. Like I get your point. Like if learning is your thing, if learning a new skill is your thing, then that's great. You're gonna go through and you're gonna learn skills to I don't know, say a 50 to 80% capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, where I'm at, like with the powerlifting part, is I had that 80% capacity. And then since I've gone in and actually gotten a coach and done the meets and got the experience, now I'm into that point where, yeah, you could say there's diminishing returns, but at the same time, like now I can say I'm a 500-pound squatter. And if anybody understands what that amount of weight on your back means, that's quite an accomplishment. So I take a lot of pride in that. It's rare earth too. Like I don't know what the numbers are, but I think over 500 is like one of those spots that they're like, you're into some lean territory. There's not a lot of people that are above that number. I mean, there are people, but
I feel like I would struggle just to rack that amount, better yet squat it.
so
Like just standing up, holding it, I would be struggling.
So I started there. So when I started competitively, I was in and around a 450-pound squat, and that was like tapped out. Like I couldn't do anymore. Um, so, and that's where I guess that's where that 80 to to where I'm at now, or where I was at before injury, was that I was starting to get to that point where I was getting into like that max of my potential. But still, if I put the time in and put the effort in, I think there's a possibility still, even after injury, that 600 pounds could be something that I may do in my lifetime.
Oh wow!
So
What
there becomes the same thing in making too. Like I guess what I'm getting at is like there's the learning part, and that's exciting, and that was like the building of my shop. Like that was exciting, that was fun. There was a lot of little projects to do. There was a lot of big projects to do. There was a lot to do. Now I'm into the stage of like I'm at that 80% of like beginner level. I'm
Right.
not saying I'm becoming a master smith by any stretch. There's a huge gap between where I am now and where I could be. And then part of that for me is the intent is that smithing will be my retirement hobby
Right.
and something that keeps me active and moving well into my later years. Because simply said, like if I make it to 80 or 90 years old, it could be something that I go out there and I putter for an hour a day, and that's what keeps me up and moving. You know what I mean? So
Right. So
yeah.
I guess maybe I'm like afraid of actually reaching the end of my abilities. Maybe this is the whole like maybe this is what it is like I go maybe I am not because like I generally pick things up pretty quickly and maybe I'll get to a point where I go I actually can't do that.
So as part of that, so somebody will say, "Well, doesn't it ever get easier?" Like as a lifter, it never gets easier because you just put more weight on.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's always a challenge. It is that it is that stupidly simple that it never gets easier because you just put more weight on.
Right.
Because at one point in time, like we put weight on like 45-pound plates. So everybody's got that 45-pound math.
Right.
So one plate is 135, two plates is a side is 225, three plates is 315, four plates is 405, then 485 or 495. That's five plates a side. Like when you start adding all that weight together, like there's it's just there's just
In,
something
in
about it.
saying that, in saying that though, I feel like at the beginning, and you could take this back to making as well, is when you're first starting to learn how to lift and stuff, it's all about form. You're not worried about how much weight you can lift. You're trying to work on your form. Getting that form right, and once you learn how to lift properly, is beneficial to you. Like there would be a point, I think, where once you have the form correct, you're done sort of that learning, and then you just add more weight and add more weight and add more weight. But until you get that form right, it like if you do a deadlift and you're not doing it correctly, you're in agony. Your back will be killing you and everything. But once you know how to do it properly, that pain goes away, and then it's about the strength.
Yeah, and to bring it back to making, like you're 100% right. Is that it's the same thing with like Grant and you're striking with a hammer.
Right.
Is that you need to learn how to strike with a hammer first before you really start like
Yeah.
going full crazy on it. Like you have to learn how to hold the hammer, how to swing, and it just makes it so that in the end you'll do it longer and you'll do it better.
You have to understand what your swing is doing and where your swing is and why it's doing that. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
and
so a couple of actual blacksmiths commented on that reel that we were aforementioned reel, and they said
yeah,
the post vise was too high. You're
yes, it
holding the
was.
hammer is fine. Your post vise was too high, and your form was shit because probably partly your post vise is too high, and clearly you're a novice. And they said keep at it, and I went yeah, it was, and I have no problem admitting if someone wants to comment on the fact that the post vise is too high, I agree. Someone wants to say I was holding the hammer at the wrong end of the like in the wrong spot because I wasn't holding it at the end. They don't understand what I was trying to do.
Yeah, you're listening to the wrong people.
Yeah,
You're
well,
worried. You're
yeah.
worried about the wrong people. Those three that come out and told you the post vice was too high, and that just keep doing what you're doing, like keep learning.
Right.
That's who you should care about.
That's who it's definitely who I should care about. But you know what? You know who I really care about? Our Patreon supporters. And I want to take this second to thank them. I want to thank the F Clamp level ones especially because they pay more so that I say their name every week. And I want to thank Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, Vincent Ferrari from Digitally Creative, Scott Oram from Dad It Yourself DIY, Joe Herdina, Lawrence from Maritime Knife Supply, Rich from Low End Design, and David Wood from DW Wood Builds. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to everyone else who supports it. Anyone who supports at any level, as low as $1 an episode, gets access to the pre-show and after-show, as well as a keychain made out of leather, stamped by me and sent to you whenever I have the time. Which, for the last 3 patrons who just signed up, yours went in the mail today. So if you're waiting on a keychain, expect it in a few days. It's going to go through Canada Post to US Post. You'll get it one day. And if you don't get it, let me know. If you want to support us, because we really do appreciate all the support we get from everyone, head on over to patreon.com/clamp, and you can find all the information there. If you can't support us, I completely understand. If you can't support us monetarily, I completely understand. You can support us by sharing the show, writing a review, and anything like that. And on that note, let's go into Clampmendations. Clampmendations!
So for me, it's a Netflix series that I watched the other night, and it's
Better not be mine.
I hope not. It's the one about the Pepsi and the plane.
No.
No, it's I think it's called Pepsi. Where's my plane?
Where
It's
is my jet or something? Is it?
yeah, like where's my jet?
Oh,
It's the guy who tried to get the Harrier jet through
yeah.
Pepsi out of Pepsi from the. Because I remember the thing that got me. I remembered the commercial.
Me too.
Like, the commercial's 95, so I was 95. I was
I was
14.
11. Yeah.
So
you're the same age as you were born in 1980?
81.
81. So my brother was born in 1980. I'm 84. That Pepsi points were
Oh yeah, I remember they all had those point systems. Like they,
right.
yeah.
So when Pepsi points came out, I would go. Me and my brother would on our bikes drive around on recycling day in our neighborhood and collect Pepsi points from recycling bins, checking, unscrewing caps. Like, just think of the germs that we touched. But anyways, unscrewing caps, popping the little things, collecting Pepsi points. We got Sony Discmans. I got so many hacky sacks. I got dog tags. I got all this Pepsi shit from 95. And I remember we were saving up. We had enough points to get the most expensive thing that was legally available. But this is interesting. So what is this thing called? Where's Pepsi? Where's my jet?
I think it's Pepsi. Where's my jet or where's my plane? One of the two.
And it's on Netflix?
It's
I just
on
canceled
Netflix.
Netflix. God damn it.
Oh well, I guess
So-
you're gonna have to get it back.
So did he get a jet with points or something? What's with that?
So there was a catalog that they put out that so it wasn't in the catalog. It was in the commercial that they put out across all of North America. I think most of the world saw this commercial. And they started out, it was 7 million points for a Harrier jet. And it just, like, this Harrier jet lands, the hero kid jumps out of it, and it says 7 million points. It says Harrier jet, 7 million points. And he was a 20-year-old at the time in 95. So he had a rich friend and had other backers that were like, said we can get a jet. It's 7 million points. It's 10 cents a point. They gave them a check worth $700 and some odd $1,000, whatever the math worked out to, and they tried to get a jet from Pepsi, and it's a 4-part documentary series, and it's really good because they play all the angles. Most people would think it's crazy. They think it was a joke, and then there's other people. The one thing that they kind of allude to is, well, they're not playing to adults; they're playing to children, and these children saw a Harrier jet for 7 million points, and they're pushing their parents to go buy them Pepsi so they can get points.
And
So that was one of the discussions they went through.
The other things in the commercial were available for the points.
100%.
They said.
Everything else in the commercial was available.
Right. It's a good one.
It sounds like Pepsi were not expecting anyone to actually try and claim it. And
no,
when someone tried to, they're like, "Oh." When someone tries to, they're like, "Oh shit." No,
yeah, I won't give away the whole thing because it is actually interesting. But it is Pepsi. Where's my jet? That's the title of it. It's 4-parter, and it's fun, and it's entertaining. So it was a good watch.
Cool,
nice. Well, my videos aren't as entertaining as a Harrier jet, but I'm going to suggest everyone checks out Blondie Hacks. You might have heard the name. She's a top supporter over at the Making It podcast, but I recently got a CNC mill, which can be operated just as a regular mill. So anyway, she got a mill skills series, and I have been watching it on the advice of both Rich from Low End Designs and Austin from the High Caliber Craftsman. Both told me to watch it, so I'm doing it. But yeah, you should go check out Blondie Hacks. She has awesome videos that are like, she deserves a lot more followers than she has. Like she's only got 150,000 on YouTube, and with the quality of videos she puts out, with all the information, she deserves more.
I feel like I hear her name everywhere. I'm
Yeah.
surprised she's not bigger.
All of her videos do better. So, like, you know how it is. Followers are meaningless. The view counts are
Yeah,
what
I know.
matters. Right?
Yeah.
I've heard the name, but I don't think I've ever watched the video. The only other,
Same.
you ever watch This Old Tony?
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing recommendations, but I mean that's another good one.
Yeah. So, and that would be, she refers to him in her videos as well, because he's the other big machinist. Well, there's a few other big machinists, but this old Tony's a, good one. But I think Blondie Hacks is, so this old Tony is like, makes some interesting stuff. I think Blondie Hacks has some very good for the hobbyist. If you're a hobbyist seeing metal worker, like machinist, go check out Blondie Hacks. If you have a metal lathe or a metal mill, go check out Blondie Hacks. You will learn so much for sure.
Well, my Clampmentation this week is also a Netflix show, and it is called Insideman. It
Oh
it's really a 4-part series. So I'm halfway through episode 2, but it's really good. I went into it not really knowing what to expect, but I love the movie Inside Man, and I was hoping it would be similar to that, which it's completely not. But essentially from what I get, the gist of it is there is a priest who kidnaps someone, and there is a guy in jail who is really good at solving crimes very quickly.
Oh, okay. That's not what I thought it was. I also watched there's another one on Netflix called Inside Job, and that's actually pretty good too. But I'll have
Inside
to.
Job. That sounds familiar.
I'll
Inside
add
Man
that one
is
to my list.
Inside Man kind of feels like it's a true story, like it's like real, but it's completely made up. But yeah, so it's
Yeah, the two British actors I know, so I'm gonna have to.
yeah, it's a good show, and there's only 4 episodes, so you can watch it in like a day.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to go check. I'm going to check that out because I canceled Netflix because I had Disney Plus and Amazon Prime and Netflix and YouTube Premium, and I went, why do I got all these things? I'll cancel one of them, watch all the stuff on the other ones, cancel one of those, get back Netflix, watch all the stuff on that. Like, I don't need to have all the streaming services all at once, but apparently I do because
we've just proven you wrong.
Right. Wow. You know how it is. There's so much content these days, and I think that's an entire topic that we could talk about one day. Is that there's just too much to watch, but we don't want to talk about that now. What we're going to do now is read a review. And Jesus, I got to say, I don't know how to read any of this because it's from Scotland and it's written in, I'm going to say Scottish. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to read this review.
I think they speak English there.
It looks like a Scottish. It looks like a Scottish pirate has written.
Right. So if you've ever,
I don't know if that's offensive or not, but
so I think Scottish is a separate language that has just developed into like they speak English there in the same way that they speak English and French in New Brunswick, but it's not the native language. Carter Shed wrote this review, and he wrote it back when Morley was still on the podcast, and is expecting Morley to read it in Doric. But I'm not. I'm going to do my best. I felt like a day loons that me finished we another. I knew all your shows. That's me listen to Burashi OM no. I'm an telling Tony Clips I'm a fair ticket with fit your dean. I keep up the rare work, chillin' you can. Cheers, Carter, for Carter Shed. now then, it'll be interesting to see how Morley gets in with the Doric. That's a local lingo from northeast Scotland. Keep up the great work, gents. Anyways, that was my horrible Scottish accent when it turned back to English.
I honestly still have no idea what he said.
So,
So
it's
if
Doric.
Carter, if you could message us and tell us what it actually says, subtitle. Can we get subtitles? Do you know what? If I remember when I'm doing the edit, I will put this on the screen so people at home can read it because, yeah, I really don't know what he's trying to say.
Yeah. Anyways,
Finish another
I have
episode.
no clue. But it is a dialect of Scottish language. So in England, not in England, in the United Kingdom, there were a lot of different languages actually, and like Welsh and there's Ireland had a language, and I think there's even like the Isle of Man had their own language, and the Manx. There was a lot of different languages that ended up being destroyed by English people, much like everywhere else in the world. So, all that to say, I'm sorry I butchered it so much. I wish there was something I could have done that made it better. But thanks, Carter, for listening. Adam slang of the week is not what we're going to do this week because instead we read a review. But if you have a slang that you want Adam to test our knowledge on, send it over to Adam's personal Instagram account at MakerMackey, and we'll get it for next week. I want to thank TF Turning for the theme song. I want to thank Tony from Woodland Iron for coming on the podcast.
It's a good time.
Yeah. You want to tell everyone where they can find you and where they can not see you post anything?
Where you can not see me post anything is Instagram.
Right.
Everything, if you look for Woodland Iron, you will find me somewheres. I think I've got everything covered as far as social media. And I guess I can plug the podcast at the same time, the Working Hands podcast. You can listen to me and Keith scream and yell at each other and generally have a good time. So
Yeah.
we have guests from time to time as well. So it's good fun.
Yeah. If you search Tony Woodland, which is Tony's last name, you will find a rollerblader. That's not him. Just letting you all know. Did it right before the podcast started. I went, that's not him. I don't think Tony rollerblades at all.
I owned a set at one point, but no, I don't rollerblade.
Yeah, we're the same age. We're practically the same age.
Everybody did it at one point.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, you can find us collectively on all the social media networks by searching for Clamp Podcast. I want to thank everyone for listening. And now we're going to go into the after show and continue talking. And this time it's about buttons. So see you there.
Bye.
Later.